Hello and welcome to the RedsReport, powered by the best of Barnsley and part of the TalkSport network of fans. And for anybody that listens regular, I got that wrong right in one. There's there's no Steve today. He sacked us off to go for a meal with his missus. Um, his loss. So tonight you've got
Absolutely.
myself and of course the man who vlogs and blogs everything Barnsley. See, Ian from the Tykes vlog is with us. Ian, you're right.
Yes, I'm very well, Carlo. Thank you.
That last week was a little bit doom and gloom almost, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But is it fair to say that after the performance and the result against Accrington on Saturday, Barnsley are back to the best, or one swallow doesn't make a stomach? Where are we sitting, Ian?
It'd have been nice to have played that game at Exeter, which would have given us a real indication of how, if we'd bounced back from that poor start in January. But it was a good performance on Saturday against. And I know people will say it was only Accrington, but you can only beat what's ahead of you. And I'd like to think we've turned a corner and got back again, and we've had our blip now. But it'd a bit. We don't play till Oxford at home now on next Wednesday, so that'll be the true test, I think, if we've turned a corner. But it was pleasing nonetheless.
Listen, it was a fantastic performance. It was a great start. And, we've talked a lot and we will talk again tonight about strikers, but Agenson and Norwood both start. Agenson and Norwood both score early on in the first half. You can't expect much more of them, can you? Like, I know Agenson sometimes, I'm not saying we wrote him off, but he had some personal problems and, the club gave him the time to sort of, get back to his best. I'll be honest, I've never seen him as like an out-and-out striker, but, keep scoring, lads, because I love to be proven wrong.
Yeah. When we saw the team sheet, I think we messaged each other, weren't we, and Steve as well, and we were thinking, is he going to be one of the front two, or is it going to be a 3-5-1-1? Because he normally plays just off the strikers. And weren't sure how it was going to play out because there was a few changes for the Accrington game, but fair play to him. Thought he had one of his better games. And it was one of them games where more than not of the players had a good 7 or 8 out of 10, and plenty of them clicked, and he was one of them, definitely.
And we talked a little bit last week about Jordan Williams and potential interest from Preston North End. So his goal, you could sort of say that came at a really bad time if clubs are looking at him. But 3 players, including him, they've extended the contract this week, hasn't it? So to have him commit the future, you have to be a little bit maybe restrained in enthusiasm because Callum Styles signed to then go. And not that we're missing him, but it looks to me very much like Jordan Williams here to stay. And if you have your 2 strikers score, but then a wing back sort of pips in with a goal as well, that's the way to recovery, isn't it? And that's the way to climb back and maybe go from 6th to 5th to 4th and put yourself firmly in those playoff position come end of March, early April.
It is. I wouldn't. I think the way the club portrayed it, people were saying, making it sound like they'd signed big new contracts, etc., and they hadn't. All the club are doing is their contract had the chance for the club to extend a further 12 months, which ultimately protects the investment. If somebody, certainly more, I don't think January, but I think in the summer, if clubs come sniffing around some of our better players, Williams or Mads that time, we can command a fee because they're under contract for at least another 12 months. So I think it made common sense because we want them here. They're playing well. They're playing every week. But it's also that reassurance that we can command a bit more of a fee if somebody comes along and stumps up the cash in the summer.
Yeah, and if they play like they did, like Williams, Anderson anyway, it just puts another 0 at the end. And like you say, if there is interest in the summer, because there's always some sort of fans that see it as, it just means they'll go for more money in the summer. I get that, but from a business point of view, you have to protect your assets, but you also have to know that if you want to strengthen, sometimes you have to, maybe sell a player to free up some funds. And one of those players today is Will Hundermark, who's left for Northampton. I don't think we ever got he never really got a regular chance, did he? He was built up as, look at this, and then I can't even remember which coach, when we didn't see him play in central midfield, says, we're making him to a centre back, and then he never sort of really came back, did he? I'm almost a bit confusing for the lad. So good luck to him if that means he's going to get regular football, and we're also trimming some of the fat and some of the rest off to get a lean squad that anybody within that is able to play. Because we never really, when we do our forecast of who's going to play, Hundermark never really featured for any of us because we've got a richness of central midfielders. So good luck to him, isn't it? I mean, there's no malice in there. Going and play football, and I hope
absolutely.
It all,
Absolutely. I think you look at Hundermark, and we've been saying it for a couple of weeks, haven't we? Him and the likes of him and Moon have either been keeping a place on the bench, stopping somebody else coming through. They've not been getting game time. I feel a little bit sorry for Hundermark. We saw glimpses of him. He looked quite a bit of a unit. He could get about, put himself about, but we never saw the best of him. We never saw his best position. And he played in a really bad time where he was under a number of managers who came and went, didn't do particularly much. And I think that, and Andy picked up a few injuries as well. So I think ultimately, best wishes to him. Maybe he can have a better time of it at Northampton. But we're right to trim the squad because it frees up a bit of wages. I don't know how much money they've got for him, but it all helps, doesn't it?
So that's another who's gone on a permanent undisclosed fee. Earlier this week, Michael Duff said that he doesn't expect anybody else sort of coming in. He wants to protect the players he's got. But then there is that strong rumour, confirmed by Doug O'Kane from the Chronicle today, that Ollie Shaw plays at Kilmarnock, striker, is somebody that Barnsley has been tracking. And, there's normally when accounts like Doug O'Kane get involved, there is some truth to that. So imagine him signing. That means 2 strikers signing this window. That would give us Aitchison, Norwood, Cole, Watters, Tedic, Jallow, Shaw. I mean, if we can't score goals or get the best out of the players, I suppose you could say then the board has listened in those areas where we needed to strengthen. If that one comes through, there is enough strikers at the club. Is there anywhere else where you'd say, while we're at it, we looked at, we're going to talk about Bobby Thomas in a bit, who obviously played against Accrington. But is there anywhere else that you think, well, while we're at it, if we're in this signing mood and the pen comes out on Twitter, is there anywhere else you say that could do with maybe looking at if a player would, become available?
I think we covered it last week, didn't we? Certainly, me and Steve were saying you can have as many strikers as you want, but if you don't give them the service, they'll not score. So I do think some sort of midfielder. I know Luke Thomas is going to come back, so that might help. But that kind of player who can open up defences, that's where I'd be looking next. I mean, you reeled off a load of names there for strikers. I suppose Tedic and Watters are only loans, so they will go eventually. But I'm glad Tedic is coming back because I think he's a confidence player. He needs to be playing. He needs to getting some goals. I think he gives us a different threat. And I'd like to see him play a little bit between now and the end of the season. But we, like you say, we've got options there. In a match, you could take the front 2 off, bring 2 different options up, couldn't you? Big men, little men, all sorts of different styles. So pleasing if we can get this one over the line. Doug O'Kane has said that we've been after him for a while. So there is genuine interest there, and it would be a permanent deal as well. But I would be looking at some firepower in that midfield, somebody who can chip in with some goals in the summer.
Yeah. So I suppose we talked a lot about the midfield and the service, and it's Benson is out for a little bit. While he's not here, let's talk a little bit about Herbie Kane while Steve's out eating with the missus. Yeah, do it quietly. I'm seeing more regular that Kane, that player that we wanted him to be. And I know Steve will say at least once an episode, he earns a living of a good season at Donny, because that's what he normally says. But actually, every time I see him, he comes over as that hard-working, grafting, stopping attacks coming our way, ball at it. He's one of the players I think he loves the ball at his feet and have a look and give people options. Connell as well. Connell is just... there was a poll the other day on Twitter, and people saying he could possibly be one of our best signings in the last X amount of years. Is it fair to say that maybe we want from them a little bit more about that service to the front and to get them to score? Because if you have those two in the centre of midfield in a 5-man midfield, so to speak, the board will probably say, "Do we really need anybody else?"
Yeah, I think you're right about Kane. He's getting more like a 7 out of a 10, 7.5 out of 10 every week. I thought he had a good game on Saturday. I thought he was overshadowed though by Connell. I thought Connell was superb. And I put a tweet out on Saturday saying, is he probably one of the best free agents we've ever signed? And it went daft. Everybody was like, agreed and comments and stuff. And you got to remember, Connell supplied, was heavily involved in 2 of the goals with his passing. And I know he does normally sit a bit deeper, but he was able to influence us offensively. So yeah, we have got it in the locker. Kane could do more like that. Benson obviously a bit in and out, but when he does do it, he can open defences up. But certainly Connell showed on Saturday that he can do that. But we need them to do it a bit more consistently. We're not getting it from like Lakesh when he comes on, or Josh Martin. But yeah, Kane and Connell are getting to be our Mr. Consistents, I think.
Yeah. Last week we talked a lot about social media, so people sort of rubbishing players before the ink's dried on a contract that they've signed, or young lads that go out on loan. Just not in the habit of this. Barnsley FC polls at BFC polls 2023. All he puts out is polls at the end of the match, man of the match, players. There are lots and lots of accounts. Sometimes we talk about the negative, but actually there's a lot of really positive, really good Barnsley FC fan, whether it be groups or accounts as well. So I don't want to, they're not all bad. There is just some people that I just don't know what they look at. Bobby Thomas, we signed him. Obviously, Duff knows him. We talked about signings and it's almost like we forgot about him, didn't we? Because he came in, he then started, and he's the sort of player that I think Cundy should really be looking at, and because he looks so comfortable as a defender, but actually going forward, and he looked so comfortable, not afraid to tackle or take one for the team. You mentioned Connell earlier, fantastic match, and we can look at a lot of players, but Thomas, for me, for a home debut especially, but sometimes there is that bit of pressure, isn't there?
Yeah.
What a player he could potentially be for us.
Yes. And I mean, we said off air, I think he was. It was only really afterwards I read some stuff on social media. And I thought, oh yeah, he did actually have a good game, because Connell. I thought Norwood had his best game in the red shirt. Connell was superb. Aitchison had a great game, and you kind of forgot he just blended in as we'd been there for months. Yeah. He's massive. He's huge. Not afraid to put himself about. But like you said, he looked comfortable with the ball at his feet. He wanted the ball at his feet. He wanted to bring it out. And like I say, somebody like Cundy could learn from that. That's what we need. So I thought he had a great debut. Yes, Accrington didn't offer a massive amount, but what he did do, he looked very comfortable and competent.
So Barnsley were back to the best, and then it's like you said a few minutes ago, you then look at taking that long trip to the northeast, southwest. Am I fair? I'm not very good with geography. Exeter. Now, the day before, Exeter race ground cancelled the day's racing. Right on was it the Tuesday? Wasn't it? They cancelled. They cancelled races. I looked earlier. I do my homework, Ian. There is 9 miles between Exeter Racecourse and St James's Park. For people that don't know how far 9 miles is, if you've got a car, if you get on junction 37 at the M1 and you drive south, you need to come off at Thorpe Hesley. That's the one after like Birdwell. That's all. It's not a million miles. It's not a great distance. If they called it off because they knew the ground was going to be frozen and everything, you then say, oh, there's a was it 3 o'clock or whatever? The referee was going to look and he was going to do like an inspection. Those Barnsley fans, and just to put it out there, this has nothing to do with Barnsley FC. They are not part of that decision-making process. This is a referee who at 3 o'clock, everything still looks okay. 10-5. Am I thinking right? Something like that, was it? When they called it off.
Yeah.
It's not a half-hour trip in the car, is it? It's not like we played Sheffield, Doncaster, Hull, or even like Middlesbrough. This was a 5.5-hour trip or whatever. Some people took the day off. Some people booked hotels to stay. And dare I say, I mean, we think that's bad. At the weekend, WSL match between, I think it was Chelsea, I don't know who else, a women's football match was called off after 10 minutes because the ground was frozen. They talk a lot about fans abusing players, but in that case, shouldn't the EFL or the WSL protect the players and fans by saying, this is not fit to play on? We knew what the weather forecast was going to be. We knew that from 6 o'clock or so, the temperatures were going to drop because it's January. It tends to do that every single day, every single year in January. I mean, it's a farce, isn't it? It's a farce from the referee to leave it that long. And I mean, how do you say? Am I being too harsh? Because I almost got mad. Like, I bought a video pass to go, to watch it. So I said to my wife, "You watch what you want. I'm going to watch." And listen, for me, I ended up watching Emmerdale or so much stupid. But for those that were there and then having to turn around and go back, the expense in days off, it's atrocious, isn't it? In 2023, that we can't get that right.
It is. I've tried to think about I mean, I wasn't caught up in it, but I really feel for the ones who went all that way. We've got the technology now that we know what the forecast is going to be to the T for the next 7 days. We have the apps, we have everything, don't we? Everybody knows what the weather's going to be like. You're right about Exeter Racecourse, Cheltenham against Sheffield Wednesday. I don't think it's that part of the world, isn't it? Not a million miles away. They called it off early. They must have known that they were up against it. I think a couple of things. One, I believe they waited for the match referee who's had to come. I'd heard he'd come from Lancashire, but he'd come from some distance. Why can they, and if people correct me if I'm wrong, why did they not have a local referee who can make that decision, who's qualified to make that decision early in the morning? They must have had an idea they were up against it because of the forecast. They'll know certain parts of the pitch might not get the sun, or the sun's not got much heat this time of the year. You're going to know, aren't you? It's like, I was thinking back to like when my lads used to play football on a Saturday morning, under 10s, under 12s and all that. And I knew on a Friday night we were never going to play because of a waterlogged pitch or whatever. But they always used to leave it to last minute, and they'd get up and they'd have the kit on and the boots ready, and then you get a message going, it's off. And I'm like, I could have told you that yesterday. And it's the same, it's just short-sightedness. Why are we not, in this day and age, a bit of common sense? They have a number of local referees who can, at the drop of a hat, go and do a pitch inspection. It doesn't have to be the match referee who's travelling from wherever, and call it early. It's not rocket science to know, right, we're not playing a local rival who are just down the road. We need to make a decision early. There was one. I think there's quite a lot of cancellations at the weekend because of the weather, and there was one. I think it was something like Oldham and Southend. So again, Southend right trek up to Oldham. But that was called off by 9:30. So it can be done. It's just, where's the common sense with people who are running football? I mean, we can say it in a number of avenues, can't we? But something like that was so avoidable. That's what's annoying.
Yeah, and credit to Barnsley Football Club for putting a statement out together with the Barnsley FC Supporters Trust, actually asking for clarification, because it's bizarre. I've just quickly looked. There's 115 miles between Cheltenham and Exeter, Exeter being more down south. So you would have thought if that was called off.
Yeah.
Listen, it's beyond. It's beyond. I mean, it's an empty gesture, but they did say there's food that was obviously ready, so fans could go. But what would you do that for? I suppose what I thought was a really nice gesture, which came out yesterday, that there's going to be an intra-team match on the Oakwell pitch. So, because obviously there is no match because it's FA Cup weekend and we play Sheffield Wednesday, who are still in the cup. We sometimes knock them, but we have to give credit as well. Credit to Barnsley for putting something on. Initial tickets for those that travelled or had tickets to go to Exeter, then over to season tickets. And I suppose it's a nice way to watch Barnsley, maybe with not so much pressure on a result, and seeing all the players involved in that squad. Chances of prizes to win for people. credit of the club for putting something on and satisfying that hunger, I suppose, amongst fans to see some Barnsley FC football.
Yes, I think it was a well-worded statement that came out. The right to whether they'll change, it's not for the club to change anything, is it? It's for the EFL, the authorities to change, to put the wrongs right. But it's good that they've stood up and wrote to the EFL along with the Supporters Trust. It's good that obviously the Duff will want, because we've not played on Tuesday, we don't play till next Wednesday. He's going to want a little bit of keep the lads' fitness up and play a game. So they're going to play it at Oakwell. I've no doubt it'll be like a pre-season like knockabout where in the summer where all the kids will be able to get like selfies with the players before and afterwards. So it should be a real family event, and fair play. I mean, what can they do? They've done as much as they probably can. So yeah, fair play for that.
And it's good because, like you say, the next match is Wednesday, the 1st of Feb. Now, I wonder what Barnsley will do because it's away at Oxford.
Which was called off last time because of the weather.
Yeah. And then 3 days later, they're actually away at Portsmouth. Now, my family, my daughter lives Gosport, which is Portsmouth. You go past Oxford. Do you really play that on a Wednesday night to return home early on Thursday morning to set back off on the Friday? Or do you think he'll probably take the squad, stay somewhere in between and keep training to then go? Because it's Wednesday to Saturday is not that much, but it's the distance, isn't it? If you probably stay there, you presume, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and I know the club have come out and said about what happened at Exeter, that the club, the players went down the day before and only right, and that's cost them money, fuel, it's cost hotels, etc. So it's going to cost them again to kind of stay in Oxford, then stay somewhere down south as a base, maybe go to one of the local clubs will allow them to use their training facilities, like Barnsley allow. I think we allowed somebody like Forest Green one game
we did,
to use our facilities when they were trekking all the way up the country. So I'm sure there'll be something, but again, it costs money. But I think it's probably the right thing to do rather than going backwards and forwards. Because I'm really tempted to go to the Portsmouth game, but I've just looked at trains and it's a massive trek from where I am and the cost as well. So fair play to anybody who's going to that one. But yeah, you're right. I think the club should probably just stay down there and come back on the Sunday or whatever, the Saturday night.
And it'll be a test, but Barnsley find themselves in 6th on 43 points. Oxford are in 12th on 35 points, and then Portsmouth are in 10th on 37. So Oxford and Portsmouth very much, very well equal, I would presume. Yeah. But in fairness, probably two harder matches to build on that win against Accrington than Exeter might have been. And I'm not saying that, but just in the table, everything else, Exeter, a few days after that winning feeling is still there. It's going to be, well, how long? A week and a half since they last played. So it is a bit of a hindrance as well, isn't it, with this FA Cup weekend that there is no match. Yeah. Because we want to get back. We got back to winning ways, but then we've got to wait a week and a half before they go back. That's also the end of the transfer season because it is the first. Do you expect, besides maybe Ollie Shaw we talked about earlier, do you expect any more further changes, late outgoings or anything? Or do you think if this Shaw lad comes on board, that will be the Barnsley squad to see us through the end of this season?
Yeah, I'm not expecting a great deal. I think whether another player or an under 23 might go out on loan, like we've seen Ackroyd and Aidan Marsh went out earlier in the season, that type of player may go out. I'm not expecting much to be done. I think you can read between the lines what Duff was saying. He wasn't expecting a great deal. I wasn't really expecting this Ollie Shaw business, but that looks like that'll be the last bit of the business. I think with Oxford and Portsmouth, it's just worrying that we're going to play Portsmouth as they're getting a new manager and started winning a couple of games like Charlton did, which is our luck. So I think we might fare better at Oxford. But tough games coming up.
I have to say on Monday, I was going to work. I set off about 7:20 or something, and Jasper Moon lives in the state as me. He literally lives like about 10 doors up in the apartments. And I let him go as I was sort of coming on from the drive, and then you get to, left towards town or ride to the M1. And normally when I've been behind, they, and he were going, I'm thinking, oh, yeah, he's going to Burton, isn't he? I wish him luck, though. And I know, again, we've talked sometimes, and I think as a fan, you're really passionate. And we said it last season a couple of times. He was absolutely thrown to the wolves at the time that things weren't right at Barnsley, and he was thrown in like the Messiah, being just graduated from the 23s, which is not right. And I think that can do a lot of damage, I suppose. And they never go back to the 23s, do it? Once they're in that first team squad, it's hit or miss, and you get called upon. And I think especially, and I know this sounds really stupid, but I think especially as a defender, when things are not going well, it's a tough spot to play, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think like when you look at like Kitchens has done well, because he was a bit, he had a tough time last season. I mean, they all did, really, didn't they? It was a shocker of a season. But you look at Toby Civic, seems to be doing well at Hearts. So, wish Jasper Moon well. He could quite fit in at Burton, or whether he's only on loan till the end of the season and he's out of a contract, whether he then moves somewhere else. It could just be the move for him. You look at Adebayo, who's gone to Burton, scored 11 goals. He's on the verge of signing for Bolton Wanderers now, I believe.
Yes. Bit of a sign-on fee, we hope. Oh, no, he was out of contract, wasn't he? He was out of contract.
Yeah, he went.
It's Holgate, I'm thinking.
Mason Holgate.
Mason Holgate, there's interest from, I forgot who it was, but there should be a sign-on fee. But
so you just don't know. It could be the move. It could be a right move for him. Wish him well. It just, a bit like Honda Mark, never really worked for him.
No, and it's a shame because it's like it's not his whole time because I don't think he's from here, but obviously settled here. Under 23s did really, really, really well. For those that are listening and thinking, great, Carlo Ian, very informative. And where is your special guest? I should have mentioned at the start that the idea was to have our special guest on, but due to circumstances beyond our control, that's postponed for a couple of weeks. But don't worry. And we are, when we say special guest, we're always on the lookout for guests that obviously Barnsley FC related, but that haven't been on before. We've talked to quite a few ex-players over the last few seasons, especially during lockdown and things like that. And we don't want to keep going back over the old ground. One of my favourite players at all times, besides Ali on the Zeal, is Darren Barnard, and we could probably get him on, but we end up talking about that goal again. And there's more to Darren Barnard, and just, you know what I mean. So we are looking and working on getting some people on that haven't been on before. That will come. So if you're now switching off because he's not on, maybe next week, maybe the week after.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, so a weekend of fan engagement, I suppose, for the squad at Oakwell, and then two tough away matches. So we'll preview them next week. We'll probably record after the Oxford game. Realistically, no easy assignment, any of those two. Where do you see us after that weekend? So on the 4th, when we played Portsmouth, 2 tough away matches.
Yeah.
Would you say 2 points? Probably enough to just keep track of those above you and not too much. Or do you say we're capable of more and I expect us to win at least one of them?
Yeah, both of that. I think I'd like to say a win at Oxford, a draw at Pompey. Get 4 out of 6 away from home. I think you'd be happy with that. Yeah. Realistically, it could be 2 points. Wickham are coming with a bit of a run, but we've got a bit of a points gap, I think, haven't we? After winning against Accrington, I think we've got a little bit of a cushion. And then obviously the games in hand, which we could have a fixture congestion. That might backfire having the games in hand. But I'd love 6, but I'd love 4. I think we can get 4 points out of them too, but they won't be easy games. But if we can mirror what we did on Saturday, then 4 is very, very possible.
Last question and about those matches. That first one at Oxford, given that a week and a half has gone past, none of the players that start did anything wrong. Would you keep it unchanged and go with Norwood, or do you say actually away it might be different? They might approach it different. Maybe bring Cole back and give him if you were the manager, how would you look at that? I know we're not privy to how they do a training, but given how they played, none of them really deserve to lose the place, do they?
No, not at all. I think you'd have to look at how people are performing in training, because we don't know how fit Waters is. Is he going to be ready? we just don't know, do we? There's so many question marks. You'd normally say pick the same team; it should pick itself. But if Waters is fit and raring to go, does he walk in that side? What do you do? Do you throw him in? Do you give him half an hour? Do you ease him in? That's why Michael Duff earns his money, isn't it?
Exactly. And for anybody that likes podcasts, the official EFL podcast dropped today, I believe. The first half is with Dwight Gale, so that's no, but the second half is actually with Michael Duff, interviewed, and it was actually
Right.
recorded on I think it was the afternoon of the Exeter game, because he's talking about our game tonight, or the game tomorrow. So he talks about the hotel having a nice golf course as well. But we have to talk about with Steve, because Steve takes like little balls and golf sticks and hits it and screams and put gloves on and everything like that. Ian, obviously there'll be nothing from the Tigers blog over the weekend, because you're not going to preview an intra-squad friendly.
No, that's true. I might be doing a little video with Jack, who writes some articles for us, and I think we might just he went to Exeter, so I want to get his opinion of what went on, because he went on BBC Radio Sheffield in the evening and chatted from down at Exeter as well, and we might just kind of look at how January transfer window's gone so far. I know there's a couple of days left of it, but I think we might look at that, so fans will have some content to peruse over this weekend if they're not doing anything else.
Yeah, and we'll get together anyway.
Yes.
And probably record in between the two away fixtures. So if people are travelling down to Portsmouth, it's something to listen to, isn't it? As always, thank you very much for taking the time and joining us this evening. It's been a bit more positive, hasn't it? There's been no swearing.
It's been polar opposite.
Professional. Almost professional.
Almost.
Yeah. No, we miss him, and I'm sure he'll be back next week.
Yeah, we do. Also, I think I think we said, didn't we, if the Accrington performance and result had gone wrong, it'd have been very toxic. So it was nice to kind of the pendulum swing the other way, and we can talk positively about a lot of good things from that game.
And I love it when the football silences us, because sometimes there are some podcasts out there, then when things are going really well, they start looking for things that could be better. I'm just happy with the performance. And if it would have been a 3-2 or whatever, I mean, I said 4-0 and everybody laughed at me. And then it was 3-0.
And then I messaged you at half-time, it's going to be 6.
I had a bet on it. I cashed out, because I'm not good at taking risks in life. People will tell you. But yeah, and I genuinely just feel that this next 10 days will be pivotal, I reckon, to our season, because if Michael Duff can get who knows, Thomas back in training with the squad, and that will be like a new signing. The new lads that played, I think, have all shown promise, especially Thomas when he sort of came on. When Tedic can come back on, I just feel really, really positive that where we are, games in hand. Some of those sides, but we've still got to play them at ours, which has to be, that home advantage. So yeah, exciting times ahead. Keep an eye on Twitter at TigsBlog. Like I say, we'll retweet anything you put out. And if you're going on Saturday, talk well, enjoy yourself. But for now, on behalf of Ian and myself, powered by the best of Barnsley, this was the Reds Report, and we are part of the TalkSport network of fans.